Welcome to the Prana Show. I'm your host, Louise Balodi.
And I'm Alan Balodi.
I'm Isabella Sarah Balodi. And I'm Gabrielle Balodi.
A true creative artist, Julie Pyatt is a plant-based chef, singer-songwriter, spiritual guide, and homeschooling mother to 4. Julie has spent decades finding the divine in all her endeavors. Through embracing a plant-based diet and simultaneously embarking on a deep meditation practice, Julie healed herself of a large cyst in her neck, which doctors diagnosed as an incurable ailment. This experience gave her an intimate connection to food and proved to her the miraculous ability of the body to heal itself when supported with pure, whole living foods and a connection to the soul. An ancient humming meditation technique that she learned from a beloved teacher carried her into the deepest chambers of her heart, where a body of original songs were waiting for her to sing them into creative form, a dream she had kept hidden even from herself since the age of 6. Julie has traveled many paths and studied many traditions to find the divine through line in all life. Similarly, she has created and tested countless recipes inspired from her journey in her kitchen lab at her home in Malibu, California. From her perspective, food is nourishment for the body temple. By harnessing her unbridled creativity, she has created amazingly delicious plant-based recipes that are both easy and nutritious. Her dishes are fresh and full of flavor, specifically designed to nourish and nurture families. Julie co-authored the best-selling Jai Seed online e-cookbook alongside her husband, plant-based endurance athlete and best-selling author Rich Roll. Together they have created a new cookbook, The PLANTPOWER WAY, 120 recipes and lifestyle guidance released in 2015. Julie is a frequent guest on the top-ranking health and wellness podcast, The Rich Roll Podcast, where she shares her spiritual wisdom as an integral part of wellness, vitality, and vibrant health. Julie recently released Mother of Mine, her debut album, and its follow-up, Jai Home, which she recorded and produced with her musically prolific teenage sons, Tyler and Trapper. In truth, Julie's expertise encompasses a whole lifestyle approach to healthy, creative, and authentic living. All right. So, hi, Prana Boosters. Today's featured guest Prana Booster is the beautiful Julie Pyatt. Hi, Julie.
Hi.
I'm so happy to have you. Thank you so very much for being on Prana Boost Radio and sharing space and time with me. It's really wonderful to connect. I feel like we're kind of kindred spirits.
Yes, sure.
So it's really, really nice to connect. And I'm excited to talk to you about some of my favorite topics. I know we kind of have a lot of things in common, including being vegan and homeschooling, working with our spouse, and all sorts of alternative wellness and many different topics. And, I've enjoyed listening to you. I think everybody is so grateful for the authenticity that you guys have brought through the podcast that you are on, and that your husband runs, and just sharing so much about your journeys. And I think that we live in a time now where people are doing that. They're just coming to be more of themselves and being willing to be vulnerable. And we didn't really have that in past generations. A lot of things were hush hush. And I remember my grandma, she used to tell me every time I would talk to her about anything, she would say, between you and me and the lamppost. I was like, oh my God, she's not around anymore, but if she knew about social media,
Yeah, that's true.
Have you guys ever shared like really personal, intimate details and had what Brene Brown calls a vulnerability hangover afterwards? Like you're like, oh my God, it's out.
I don't think so. I don't think we've gone to that length. Although I'm sure Rich, after we shared our last podcast, which is about a relapse that he had, I think he may have had a vulnerability hangover for a day. So, but yeah, not too much. We're pretty good with gauging when it's the right time.
Yeah. I've heard you guys speak though, and I think it's wonderful, and it's so cool that you're doing it together and everything like that, and sharing so much of your family. I have your book, your beautiful, gorgeous baby.
Oh, thank you.
It's kind of like a scrapbook almost, like, for your family. I mean, it must have been such a beautiful thing to see it actually be finished, and you have so much of yourselves and your family captured in here forever for the kids and everything.
Yeah, it was really, I mean, for sure, it was a very, very beautiful blessing for us to have the opportunity to document our family at that moment in time. And it's not lost on me or on us at all. I fully recognize the gift that it is to be able to share that in that way, because, life is just for this moment, and the kids are growing and changing, and we're growing and changing, and this is only a moment. Like, it's just a moment in time. And so it's truly beautiful, and I really, really feel deeply the blessing that it is.
Yes, I agree, and I can feel it in it. When you hold it, it has pieces of you. It's absolutely beautiful. So I first met you when my family and I attended your book signing celebration in LA at the Skirball.
Yes, your beautiful family.
Thank you. It was amazing. It was so lovely how you guys were sharing your story, and it was something that touched me. It just hit me that night, actually, based on some stuff that my husband and I have been going through. And it wasn't really about health for us, because we've been on this journey together, step by step, on what we've been eating, and actually our family becoming vegan. But it was interesting here and I don't remember exactly, so I was hoping you would share it, but you talk about kind of being on Rich's case, sort of, trying to get him to shift and get him to change, and because you love him and you care about him and share all the wonderful things that you have learned, and kind of how you had to surrender and sort of let him be and love him as he is in that moment. And I don't remember the story you told of who inspired you to kind of surrender and let go and let him be. So I wonder if you could share that with me.
Yeah, I'd love to. It's a very profound step in our journey, for sure. And I had been with Rich, and I was the healthy one in the relationship, and I had healed myself of a cyst in my neck, and I could see that he was struggling. He was struggling. He had density, in the form of weight, in the form of sort of a transfer of addiction from alcohol addiction kind of to food. And it was just sort of like a malaise, like this sort of, I call it density. Like, I couldn't see him, like the being that I knew was there. And so I tried to help him because I love him, and he's my love. So I would extend my hand, and he would not take it. It was like the more that I showed up for him, the more products that I got, the more the more that I wanted him to eat like I was eating, the more that I wanted him to step on the spiritual path in the way that I was doing it. Like, I think it was this sort of naive moment where I was like, wouldn't it be beautiful if my partner was on my spiritual path with me, and we were, walking every step hand in hand, and that he resonated with things the way I resonated with things. And so it was a rather long journey. It was about a 7-year period. And at the time, we were also having, other financial issues and, other things going on. But when I spoke to my friends about what we were experiencing, they spent a lot of time telling me how right I was, because I was clearly the one in the relationship that was meditating, that was eating healthy food. I'm not an addict. I was interacting with the world in a seemingly more balanced way than he was. But what I found is that after years and years of banging my head against the wall, nothing was shifting in my relationship. And I was very right. Like, everybody thought I was so right, but yet nothing was shifting in my relationship. So I
listened to Abraham Hicks, and it reminds me of Abraham when Esther talks about trying to push a noodle. It's like trying to push a noodle.
Oh, that's funny.
Right?
That's so funny. Yeah. It was, and I have to say, I tried everything. Like, I reasoned, I intellectualized, I begged him, I pleaded with him, I threatened him, I kicked him out of the house for, a 24-hour period or something. So I really had sort of tried every single role to get him to shift. And then I was working with an Indian master, one being that I was meditating with, and this being suggested to me the concept of divine love. Like, what is divine love? And he shared with me that divine love is simply like the sun. It simply loves you for your essence, exactly the way you are right now, before you've achieved anything, before you have any titles or anything won, anything realized. It simply loves you, and it never stops loving you. And then he suggested to me that human love is like a business arrangement. So it's an agreement where it says, if you do X, Y, and Z, then I will love you. But if you don't do that, then, I'm out of here or whatever. So I don't know why it was this particular moment in my life. And I have to say that I have been married 3 times. So I've had a full spectrum of relationship experience. And I'm not an advocate of staying in a relationship that is complete or that is, very negative, like abuse or, these kind of things. So I have to couch my experience with that, because it was very unique in that Rich was my 3rd marriage. I had all this experience behind me. And so for some reason, I was able to really imbibe this teaching of divine love. And I had, my moment where I went inside myself and I asked myself, am I leaving this man? Am I going my own way? And the answer was no, that I loved him and I wanted to be with him. So at that point, I made the decision to simply release him to his life in complete love and compassion. And it was just that moment of realization. It was a moment for me, because at that moment, I truly did embody that energy. And I was able to tell him, I'm sorry that I was in your space. I'm sorry that I tried to, get you to, do things my way. And I simply don't care anymore. I love you unconditionally. And I release you. I don't need you to realize this lifetime with me. I don't need you to be on the same spiritual path I'm on. And I don't need you to eat the same food I eat either. So I let him go, and he was kind of shocked. Like, he probably thought that there was a trick and that someone was going to, like someone was going to jump on him out of the bushes or something. But he later, if you ask him, he'll tell you that he could feel the difference. Like, there was such a difference, and he could feel it. And so suddenly I was out of his space, and then he had to look at himself, because from his side, he had me to blame because I was standing in his space. So it was truly a catalyst moment. And if it was not for that moment, Rich Roll, the man today, the inspirational figure, the Ultraman, the author of Finding Ultra, and the podcast host of this amazing podcast that's reaching so many people, the Rich Roll podcast, none of that would exist. And the Plant Power Way wouldn't exist either, because it really was because of that defining moment. That is what allowed his soul or divine mother or whatever you want to call it to activate within him and create probably the deepest part of our hearts better than we even knew ourselves.
I love that. I had tears rolling down my face from that story. When you told it at that book signing, I just thought, God, how many times have we been taught to do that? That we instinctively do it, but we're also taught to do it. Like, if you love someone, you will just be on top of them and try to motivate them. And, years ago it was tough love. And I don't even think it's tough love, but it was somebody you care about. You see them, not being in alignment with you in some way, or not being in alignment with their true soul and their true self. And it's painful to watch somebody that you love. And it takes so much courage. Even now, when you told that story, I was getting the chills, and I was thinking, so I teach a lot of mindful parenting, and I can think of so many scenarios where that would be necessary in parenting. I can think of all these scenarios in my head of times when I've kind of been in my child's space because I care about her and because I love her, or or because I know better, or because and I've had the ability, I think, over the years with them to let go a little bit, because I actually realize sometimes when you let go, they have great ideas and great input and great insight, and so I was able to receive that back for them, for a while my daughter didn't trust me because she would ask me something and I would say no in a kind of reactive way. And then I would think about it for a second, and I call it now a Prana Boost pause. I would take a pause before I answer instead, but before I would just answer, and then I would think about it, or she would talk to me and tell me more, and I would say, oh, you're right. Like, I changed my mind. And then she's like, what? You can't change your mind that fast. Like, she couldn't trust it because I was going through this process of learning to take back what I said because it was, it was not a mindful response. But I've thought of all the times that I've done that, with my own husband and my own relationship, and people do that all the time, and they mix in, and we think we know what's best for everyone. I just was blown away by that story that you shared at that time, to hear it from me, because I think it's important to love somebody in an unconditional way, especially before you decide if you could part ways or not. At some point you may have to part still.
Well, and I mean, this is something that I've found to be very, very powerful also. And I think that, I know myself, like, we went through this extreme financial collapse, and it was really like that was just the surface part of it. It was a dark night of the soul, and I was having my own spiritual inner transformation in the inner recesses and the depths of my being. And the only thing that I really needed anybody to tell me is, I love you and I believe in you to find your way. Like that statement would have been extremely healing and supportive to me. But in society, you don't get that. You get fear from people who don't understand why you're doing what you're doing. And so kind of like my entire history of taking care of my family, of taking my siblings on vacation, of being the one that always held the parties and the marriages and the the baby showers, and like everything was happening in my place, in my care. And then when I couldn't do that anymore because I was going through this very appropriate dark night, everyone that's used to the physical gets very freaked out and angry. Really, it's fearful because since you're going through something, it brings their thing up. And then what happens is, instead of giving you the love and support that you need so much from your fellow humans, you get their judgment. So not only do you have to deal with your very difficult moment that is happening between you and you have to, I have a spider crawling up. You have to, I just got him, little thing. Sorry. You have to deal with their judgment on top of it. And it's very, very, very violent. It's a violent thing that we do, that we're programmed to do. So it's like if somebody's doing something that's very out of the box, or really a radical move, what they need someone to say, I believe in you to find your own way. Like, I give you that level of respect. And I extend that to my children as well, because children are not less developed than a person who is older in years. They're not necessarily less developed, just because they're a certain age. And I find that basic common respect for children goes a very long way.
Yes.
Yes.
I agree completely. But the ability to do that, where do we learn that, right? Like, where do we possibly learn that type of love? It's not in the marriage vows. It's not in any type of college class or, any class anywhere, actually. So, we went through a phase where we did a lot of that when we got on our spiritual path. And I used to call my husband a spiritual snob. I'm like, you're being a spiritual snob. We used to have this talk. I'm like, we used to call it micro to macro. Like, I cared about all the micro stuff that was related to spirituality, and he cared about macro. So I was even very threatened when he bought a book on astral travel, because I was like, you're not even present with me now, and now you're going to go, like, travel, like, in other dimensions. Like, first, can you, like, be with us here? Like, oh my God, we've been through so much. But he would say stuff, and, you know, then you get into the point where people say, like, it's all an illusion. And I'm like, no, this really matters. Like, it matters what I'm going through as a mom and what's happening with our children. And, you know, well, even if it's illusion, I'm in the illusion right now, so help me. You know, things like that, because we were just getting our feet wet in it and just learning. But it's, you know, and then your evolution happens how it's supposed to, you know, and it happens at your own timing and at your own pace. You know, at that same event, when you, we do a lot of stuff with our kids too. Like, they help us. My husband and I have been making video games for the last 15 years, and the kids would help us draw characters, and they would participate. We even have a couple apps in the App Store that they drew the characters, and, you know, cool. Yeah, it's really cool. So they help us a lot as they've gotten older, and so it was so wonderful to me when I saw you walk on stage with your sons, and I realized that they were such amazing, talented collaborators with you. But then you brought on your nephew and then your dad.
Yeah.
It was really so beautiful, and I didn't know what to expect, because when I first got there, I didn't hear your music previously.
Oh, okay.
But man, your music was like at a frequency of love. It was like just a couple beats, I'm telling you, and it touched my soul, and I had tears, and then I looked around and I thought, oh my God, I'm crying. She just started. Like, I didn't even hear you sing for more than like 2 minutes, and I felt it, and I just wanted to tell you that, because that was so meaningful to me that you were able to do that. First, I was thinking, are you nervous? You're on the stage. Someday maybe I'll do that. I was so in my head, right? And then you started singing, and I'm like, oh my God, what is that? Took me by surprise.
Thank you so much for sharing that. It means so much to me. The music is so deeply meaningful to me. And, you know, if I was given one gift in my life that, you know, was so worth coming into a body for, it was to create music with my sons. And I was always a musician from age 6. I wanted to sing, but then I made a very conscious decision, or, you know, to not do it. And when I was younger, I was like, oh, I can't believe that I didn't do that. But then later, when I see now what happened, I really believe I was waiting to do this with my sons. This was the plan. So I actually accessed my music through a meditation practice. I was going through another death experience, loss of a spiritual teacher. And I was meditating in the early hours at 4:30 a.m. and a lot of tears and a lot of crying. And then when that cleared, the songs just wrote me. So I wasn't trying to write a song. I didn't go and make a poster board and make a vision board. And I just really had nowhere to go but inside my heart. And those songs were waiting inside my heart. So as I started to try to express them, because I wasn't a musician, so I made like charts on pieces of paper so I could find on a keyboard, actually a harmonium keyboard, a limited keyboard. I would make, you know, marks so I could find the chord, because I didn't know what a D or an A or a G was. And then later, one morning at like 5 a.m., as I was playing and singing, I heard the strum of a guitar, and my son, who was then, I think, 8, had gotten out of bed and had come to play with me. And so at that one moment, I was just so full of love and fulfillment and beauty. And little did I know that was only the beginning of me becoming a musician with both of my sons over the next 7-year period. And it is absolutely incredible that my soul gave me that I gave myself that. And so it's extremely meaningful. And I do have that experience even before we recorded the record. I have had, many people break down crying when I sing.
Wow.
And it's this type of thing. Like Tyler and I, we were on the Big Island. It was the year that Rich DNF'd from the last race at Ultraman, and Tyler and I walked up to the music store and we borrowed a ukulele, and Tyler taught me this quick part. And then we asked the store owner, can we run this? And she said, yeah. So I sang In the Sun, which is on Mother of Mine, my first album. And when we finished, she had completely broken down and she was sobbing.
Oh.
And she was like, I'm so sorry. And I was like, no. And I remember walking out, Tyler and I walking out just shoulder to shoulder, and we kind of looked over at each other and we were like, okay, so that was good. Like that was a good marker of like where the song was and where the music was. So I have to say that I'm still living in this heaven because my boys still live with me, and we now have a recording studio at the house. And I just started learning to play sitar this year. And so we're doing some amazing things. They're doing some things separately, but it's truly just an unbelievable experience. And I pinch myself many times every day.
I bet. It's fantastic. And it's rare to have that type of connection. And that's what I talk about with my parenting stuff. I'm actually writing my first book on Prana Boost parenting, and it's so much about that, I think, because you actually probably respect them enough to be their authentic selves, and because you learned how to do it and bring it through you can honor that in them. Yes. So I mean, that's a rare thing for a parent to offer, a gift to be able to offer their children. It's kind of rare, and it's wonderful that you can share that miracle with them. It's beautiful.
Yeah. Thank you.
I love it. And then you brought your dad up. That was just so cute.
Yeah, that's amazing. So my dad's from a very musical family. His brother played trumpet and piano with the Glenn Miller Band.
Oh, wow.
Back a long time ago. And his mom was a piano teacher. And my dad was never a big musician, but he always played harmonica after dinner. And so he would always get his harmonica out and we would play. And my dad is, from Alaska, and he's from Texas, and then, moved to Alaska, and he's a bush pilot and an engineer, and he is now 92, and he had to come to LA, like was forced. We finally were like, enough already, like you guys have to come. So my parents are both here living with my sister, and they have a beautiful place, but he had never performed on stage, my dad, before that event. And so I said to him, hey, Dad, you think you could play with us on these couple songs? And he said, well, I'm too old. I can't do them too old. And then he goes, what key is it in? Like, that's it. So we were able to get him there, and he came on stage, and, he's just musically so with it. So it was a huge experience, and we were so glad to be able to have that experience with him.
That's awesome. I'm so happy about that. So I know you mentioned earlier that you had healed yourself of a large cyst that you had. I wonder if you could share a little bit more about that.
Yeah, sure. Well, it was about in 2007. No, let's see. Let me get my years right. No, it was 2005. 2005, my third daughter was a couple years old, and I was walking by the mirror, and I just saw this huge mass in my neck. It was literally came on like overnight, or I just didn't notice it for a day, but it couldn't have been there very long. And I thought to myself, is that my Adam's apple? Or that's so weird, but it was literally the size of a golf ball.
Wow.
And being a pretty thin person my whole life, I never really had a connection to food in a negative way. I never had weight issues, but I also didn't necessarily have a connection to food in a healing way either. So I was kind of eating whatever I wanted to eat. And at the time I had started practicing yoga. So I was, eating much healthier, much healthier, but nothing like, what I'm doing now. And I went and had an MRI, and it was diagnosed as a thyroglessial duct cyst, which is like a condition that happens in children between the ages of 8 and 12. And so they wanted to cut it out. It required a medium level surgery. So if they had been able to like pop it, I probably would have gone like, all right, stick the thing in. But it was a medium level surgery, and I had some years earlier, I had a tonsillectomy as an adult, and I had a bad experience. I had pain referring from my tonsils into my eardrums, and I lost about 20 pounds, which is a lot of weight for me to lose. I literally couldn't eat for about 8 weeks.
Wow.
And so when they told me that they were just going to cut my neck, I was kind of like, yeah, I don't really think you're going to cut my neck. So I went another route, and I had been dabbling in yoga, fallen in love with yoga, and very, very into it. But I hadn't fully gone into an Ayurvedic practice or Eastern Indian medicine practice. And so I ended up contacting an Ayurvedic physician, and I embarked on a 2-year journey with him, and I completely healed myself of this cyst that was diagnosed completely incurable by these doctors that I saw.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And I know, I know that that's actually the starting point for a lot of people who, work to increase their wellness and their well-being on their own, is because they sort of hit a roadblock, or they have people tell them what's not possible, or they're not happy with the answers that they're given, so they start searching for other answers. I know that's what happened for us. That's amazing though. I mean, that's a miracle as well. And it's interesting that you mentioned both of those, because those are all throat chakra areas.
Well, what was interesting was I got the cyst at the same time that I was receiving the music. So then I started to sing. So it's like my body on one level was like, hello, over here.
Yeah.
Sing, sing, sing. And then, it just showed up like that. So it's all connected, as you know. So there's, the physical, and then there's the emotional, and then there's the spiritual. So it was really beautiful, and I decided that I wouldn't waste it, and it gave me this deep connection with food, with plant-based food, and food as medicine. And nobody was on my side. Nobody believed that I was going to persevere. I had zero support, and even Rich was not in alignment with my choices. But I don't know. I felt
they were all scared. Felt scared.
Yeah. Scared. And I mean, I find that it's that pesky fear, the fear of death, that seems to drive so many poor decisions, and I mean, we should be using the fear of death to live each moment as if it was our last, but instead we're using the fear of death to say, I'm too afraid, so I'm going to do this other thing that is not that sure, but at least more people are doing it. And it's that trying to avoid the death. I think that is the core pain that we're all dealing with. And I don't understand how a world and a society spends its entire existence ignoring death. The fact that it's even coming at all. Right.
And it's a known given. But yet we're supposed to act like we're like, oh, I don't know. I don't know. Let's not talk about that. Or, it's not, it's a mystery, right?
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's just not smart. I mean, it's really illogical. It's insane.
Well, I'll have to send you one of my shirts that I want to wear about everything in life that I question and that I do, and it just doesn't make any sense. That's what my shirt says. It just doesn't make any sense to me. Just doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense to me. I write that a lot when I talk about parenting. It doesn't make any sense to me that parents every parent tries to teach their child not to hit. Don't hit the dog, don't hit the cat, don't hit the friend, don't hit when you're angry, don't hit ever, but then they hit their children. Like, I want to give everyone that shirt. It just doesn't make any sense to me. But anyway, that's off topic. But yeah, it's one of those things that just doesn't really make any sense. And You know, it's interesting, our journey to become vegan, because for us it's very rare as well. So like all four of us are vegan now. And they have been all vegan for a few years, and I went first. And I was really by myself. And it was hard for me because I had watched, Forks Over Knives, and I was starting to learn about my food. And I had never, ever, ever been a fan of eating meat, though, ever. Eating chicken, my mother-in-law used to try to trick me in college. She knew that I didn't like chicken. I just used to say I didn't like chicken, but I really didn't like eating any animals. And she used to say, it's not chicken, it's turkey. And I'm like, well, hello, how are they not like related anyway? But she was tricking me. But anyway, long story short, I would see these documentaries, and I had a hard time still feeding my family the stuff that I already learned about, because once you know, you can never go back.
Right.
But I wanted to respect their,
journey.
their journey and their feelings. But I was the cook, and I was the one shopping, and I felt this huge responsibility that I was making these decisions. So, it wasn't that hard initially because our kids would not eat animals. They said, we won't eat anyone who had an eyeball or a mama, is what they told me. So they actually created us to be vegetarian, because it's a very funny story, but my husband was eating a big, huge Chicago Italian beef. Yeah. And my daughter was like 3 or 4, and she looked him in the eye, and we're from Chicago, so we were eating like a Chicago Italian beef. And he was just so happy, and she looked at him and said, Daddy, is that a dead animal in your mouth?
Oh.
And he's all like, no, baby, that's just Italian beef. And then he's like, oh my God. So little by little, we started to piece these things together. We went vegetarian. Like I said, I was actually in my kitchen. I wrote this down. I was slicing Gouda, because that was like my favorite cheese that I would serve my husband and I made Gouda sandwiches, and we loved Gouda. We were already vegetarian, and I just kept saying, I can feel it. I'm this close to going vegan. Because I had all that knowledge, and I knew what it was doing, and I learned where it came from, and I just knew it. I could just feel it. So I felt like it kind of took over me, and we taught our girls many things about ingredients, and one of the things we taught them was, why gelatin rhymes with skeleton. They love to talk about that all the time. So, but I have 2 little girls who, it was hard, even though they wanted to eat healthy. It was challenging. They said I couldn't get rid of their favorite food until I found or invented a replacement that tasted exactly like the one that they had, like cheese crackers or, things like that they loved. So, I did my fair share of crying in the aisles at Whole Foods or at home, not knowing what on earth I was going to feed my family. So when I was, going through your book, I was thinking about the fact that you really do need this guidance that you say you offer for your family, because it's not an overnight thing. And I love that you stated that in the book. It's a process.
Yeah.
It's definitely a process, and it's definitely learning a new way to be.
Yeah, and it's ongoing,
It's
ongoing. It's always changing. It's kind of like being in the now moment, or it's kind of like, like how do you stay in a state of forgiveness, or how do you stay? It's like each moment, like in each moment you make the decision again.
To do it again, yeah.
Yeah, to do it again. So it's a process, and it's always moving and changing, and it depends also on a lot of it is community. I mean, it really is community, because the microbes of the community that we're hanging around with, then that becomes, an energetic issue. And, it's a constant, I've been writing a lot lately, and, I've noticed that I'm actually testing cheese recipes in the kitchen. So there's not the amount of food coming through. And so, I'm just like, wait, like it's not quite as healthy around here as it was, a few weeks ago. So it's a constant challenge. But I think, again, that if we have compassion in the moment and understand that everybody's journey is unique, and that we have to give people the right to arrive to their own conclusions. Because if they do it for you, it's just going to create an eating disorder or something else, some backlash.
Yeah.
So what I say is educate on the truth of the matter, the water consumption, first of all, that, the industrialized meat, it doesn't matter if you like chickens or you like beef or whatever. It doesn't matter anymore. What matters is it's decimating the planet. And so, we need to talk about these kind of issues. We need to talk about the animal cruelty and the terrible violence that we're creating, not only inside the animals' lives, but in the being that beat the animal or killed the animal. And then they're taking that violence back to their own communities. So there's other ways to look at it, but I think overall, the kitchen should be a place of, it's the spiritual heart of the home. It is the heart and the center of the spiritual connection, and your food should be infused with all the love you can muster, and that is the most important ingredient in any meal that you're making in the kitchen.
Yes, absolutely. I totally agree. I love that you said that. And for us, when people would talk about health issues, I felt like everything was so distant for me, and I never really liked the fact that I would have to go to someone to tell me how I should feel or how I should heal or what I should do. And my daughter was experiencing, this is really the only thing she had ever, was just, she kind of felt like her ear was clogged up. And it was interesting. And at that point, that's when I was considering the vegan plant-based lifestyle. And I said, let's just try an experiment, like a science experiment. Let's just remove any type of dairy that you're having, right? And any type of cheese. And let's see how your body responds to that. So that's how I would talk to her. I mean, I never said fear-based stuff. I never said this is harming you or this is what it can do to you. Even though the truth of the matter is we know the effects of it now. More than we ever did. But I spoke to her at her level, what she could understand, but I said, let's just try it. Let's see how you feel. And she was like, maybe like a week into it, she's like, Mom, it's gone. I feel amazing. I'm 100%. That's what she would say. I'm 100%. Yeah. And I said, do you think it's because of, what you've been eating or not eating? And she was like, yeah, I really think so. And, we'll keep trying it. But that was the transition in. But, there were still a lot of moments of, hesitation, or am I doing the right thing? Am I feeding them the right stuff? It's, it's definitely a process. And then I used to like the one where everyone would say, aren't you just going to let them have meat, once in a while, or like once a month, or, whenever they want it? And I said, listen, they didn't eat meat before we became vegan. They didn't want it, but they never had McDonald's. They've never had McDonald's. They've never had Coca-Cola. Because I was more mindful about it, they just didn't have it. I just didn't introduce it. And I would just say to them, I don't even know what to say. I would say, listen, we're going to take it day by day. We're going to make decisions as a family, but I don't offer them a cigarette once a month. So exactly. I'm not going to do it, but I'm going to, as they get older, empower them to make their own choices, how they feel, and things like that. People always ask you, that leads me into my next topic that I was going to say that we have in common is education and alternative schooling. Yes. So I would get the same question about schooling. We homeschool our girls, and I've since learned that it might be called unschooling if it has to have a label. I know you and I connected that night when we saw a big hero and mentor of ours, Sir Ken Robinson.
Yes, that's right.
Over at Muse School, and I loved hearing his thoughts on it. And I also interviewed someone on my podcast. Her name is Dana Martin, and she wrote a book called Radical Unschooling, which is when I thought, do you know her? Do you know about that book?
I know her, yeah.
It's a really good book, and I kept thinking as I was reading it, I guess maybe, I don't know, maybe we're unschoolers. I guess this is if this is a label that, seems similar, maybe we'll use that label. People used to say the same thing. Are you going to do this forever? Are you going to, what happens when they get older? Are you, everybody's worried about the future of your family. But I know you actually homeschool or unschool. What would you call it with your?
Well, I've been an unschooler for years. Okay. But actually my girls are at Muse right now.
Oh, so they go to Muse. Okay.
Yeah, they ended up going there, and it's, it's an environmental school. It's the first plant-based school, and Rich and I are collaborating with that community over there, and it's literally just over the mountain from my house. I'm just a small mountain away. And it's a little tough for me still, because I had wanted to really start a community and gather a community of unschoolers to be able to keep doing what I'm doing. What happens in my experience is, after a certain age, the community or the mass or the energy is not there. And, so it seems like this is a good step for my girls right now, but I have to be honest, it's not my first choice. I tried to put together a whole community last year and I was not successful. And I think the biggest reason is because we as parents still have so many hangups involved around education that we are unable to let go. Now, if you had been close to me, then, we could have found each other and we could have done something. I did unschool with 2 other families for 1 year. We had 7 kids between the ages of 7 and 13 and a rescue puppy. It was the most support I've ever had of being a mother. At the time, I'd been a mother for 18 years. It was absolutely magical, amazing, and completely groundbreaking. The kids were unified. There were boys and girls, and some of them were autistic, and they healed this puppy back to life that was actually deeply injured. And we spent a lot of time on food and nutrition, like way more time than most people would think is smart. The dads would come home and say, what about math or what about science? And we were like, yeah, we made this gluten-free, vegan, farm to table, and so played music, and this happened. And honestly, like in hindsight, I realized that's the most important thing we could have been doing for that time. Because if you don't have your health, you don't have anything. And if you don't have these good habits established and, these good microbial environments, you have a lot more challenges later on. And the thing that was really present in the community was this loving compassion and understanding and acceptance of every being. For, the autistic one, none of them knew he was autistic.
Wow.
He was just him. It wasn't like, oh. And that's the thing that I don't find useful about standardized education. It's the labeling and it's the comparing and the shutting down. Yeah, and so what I think I was able to do, and I'm keeping a close watch on it. I was able to guard the self-esteem of my children like a precious gift. Mm-hmm. And I think all of us would say, if you interviewed any parent, they would say that they had some crushing moment in their childhood that they don't want their child to experience. And so what I'm saying is, why do we keep sending our kids into the same structure and the same system that cultivated those pains or that dishonoring of what our divine blueprint was or how we were made? So, the jury's still out. I'm grateful for the opportunity. I'm writing a lot of books right now, so we'll see. But I'm also not afraid to bring them home in a second if that's, the right thing to do. And, I have been successful with this because I play in a band with my boys. And if I had been not successful, they would not be living with me right now. So who knows? Maybe I'm going to succeed and maybe the community is just coming, a couple years behind me after I write my book on it. But I am a huge advocate of unschooling. I commend you for doing what you're doing. And you are, as you know, you're gaining the greatest gifts. People always say, oh my God, how do you do that? And I'm just like, how do you not do it? How do you, the gifts and the connection that you receive from doing it are far surpass the effort or the inconvenience,
Yeah, I totally agree. For us, it's been challenging because we are the black sheep of of our families and of our society. Hi, black sheep.
Hi, black sheep.
Yeah, and it's hard. And I always say, Wayne Dyer, who just passed, said it's never crowded along the extra mile, or I call it's lonely on the pioneer path. It's been very lonely to try to forge our own way of life that feels good to us. And my book that I'm writing is not necessarily on telling people that they should live like us. It's in sharing with them how we have found our way to, I call it feeling your way through parenting. Tapping into their own intuition to feel their way through. And that's what we learn to do, and it's really hard with a lot of outside pressures. But they always say, well, what are your kids learning at home? And for me, my biggest focus is, physical health and emotional health. I think emotional health is just as important, completely equal to physical health. And, we're teaching our children emotional intelligence, compassion, unconditional love, and nonviolence. And they are not going to learn that in a current school environment.
No.
And I'm also grateful that I'm the one there to do it, that I'm able to help them and guide them at every step of the way, because I won't be later, and we're building this foundation that they can grow and blossom from. And it just sounds so crazy to people, so I had to get really, really strong and really, really connected with myself and my husband. And, I was talking about this with my mom recently. My mom is a teacher with her, master's degree, and she's retired now, but everybody was very upset. I don't know if they still are or not. Maybe I'm not listening. Maybe they're not talking about it as much. But now that they see the kids are older, they're 9 and 11, they can read, they can write, they're healthy, they're inquisitive, their vocabulary is very advanced. And because we speak to them like they're real human beings, I think they're less afraid that we're ruining them, but I think they still doubt what we're doing. But I know it's right for us.
Yeah, no, it's listen, it's always a lonely road when you're trying to write something new. And, at the end of the day, it's like what about the whole baby Einstein movement, and you had like parents, putting their kids in front of video, trying to get them to learn all this stuff at such a young age. And now you have all the research coming out, like in other practices, and, Waldorf, where they don't want to teach the child to read until they're 8. So it's like, nature is very powerful. And as Sir Ken Robinson told us, kids learn to do a lot of things on their own without help from any adult. Like, for instance, talking. For instance, many, many things that are very, quite complicated. So again, I think the key is every child is different. I think the awareness of knowing that children have lived thousands of lifetimes before, and that they're not just a little person that's 3, that awareness goes a long way. I think just mutual love and compassion and respect for that being. And, if I have one goal, it's to preserve the self-esteem of every child. I would have that for every person, So I guess, my kids are not going to be, reading at the same level at, age 8. But I'll tell you what, they are very, very grounded in who they are. They are creatively engaged. They are well, socialized, meaning they can talk to anybody. And
right. That's what Dana and I talked about. There's no age segregation when they don't go to school, so they actually can engage in just other humans, no matter what their age is.
Yeah, and you know what? I really am an advocate of tribal learning, of like everybody going together. And like recently, my one daughter's into hockey right now, and so the whole household has been piling in the cars and like driving to this ice rink. And the other day, it was like an old homeschool teacher of ours who's like 40 years old or 45 years old, then a 30-year-old, then a 23-year-old, then a 20-year-old, a 19-year-old, an 11-year-old, a 7-year-old, an 8-year-old, and a 4-year-old. They all went skating together.
Wow.
There's no mother in there. There was no mother presence or father. And I just absolutely love that experience. They laughed their heads off. They had the best time ever. And, I just find this, let's go, putting a child in with everyone their same age there's something very odd about it to me. And I don't know that they feel best in that environment all the time.
Yeah.
I can't say I'm convinced.
Yeah. But it's okay because, I mean, I try to be really respectful too. I know that not everybody wants to stay home and not everybody wants to be with their kids all the time. You know, I used to get that when I worked with my husband. I've pretty much been working with my husband since I met him. And next month on Halloween, we're going to be together 21 years. And
Wow.
we were even working together in college. We worked at a country club, and he was the valet guy, and I was the coat check girl.
Oh,
and
sweet.
that's how long we've been working together. And I mean, I encountered so many people that said, "Oh, I would kill him. I could never work with my spouse," things like that. And I said, then you shouldn't, because it wouldn't be good for him.
Right, then don't do it. Right,
Yeah,
exactly.
then don't do it. But that's why I'm just finding this way of, I feel like if we keep sharing our stories like you are and like we are, we can show people that we're not necessarily trying to tell them to live like us. We're just trying to inspire them of what's possible when you connect with your authentic core, and then you and your family figure out what's good for you. And everybody in the family has a little bit of a vote in that, you know? So it's just a kind of a new generation, a new way of thinking. And I think it's awesome. So the one thing I wanted to tell you was so interesting was that we go to a dentist that I figured out we share with you as well. I keep seeing these little God winks around town. I was like, oh my God, I saw your book at the dentist. And, you know, I had to research this, you know, holistic biological dentist and find a place that I felt comfortable taking our family. And I saw your book, and then they're like, oh yeah, there are patients here. And I'm like, of course they are. Of course they are.
So funny.
Yeah.
I was there today, actually.
Oh my God, no you weren't. Oh, hi.
Who are you?
I'm in an interview right now.
Oh, you are.
It's okay, I'm Tina. I'm interviewing your mom.
I'm just making toast and food.
Okay, you can't right now. Can you give me a few minutes?
Mine are upstairs.
The lights are going down and the kids are coming in.
That's
and,
okay.
yeah.
That's okay. We're almost done. I just had a couple more things I was going to connect with you on. I feel like it might be kind of out of place now, a couple notes that I had. I'm trying to remember. I felt like we could probably talk for hours on many different topics, but I'm so glad to just have this, you know, introduction to you and this connection. You know, regarding your book and everything you guys are doing and the health and all the stuff that you guys are advocating, you know, I wish that I had known it sooner, but I know everything is perfect and I know it works out how it's supposed to and everything like that is a journey. But, you know, here in your book, it mentions, you know, I mean, we have major epidemics going on in our country, and we are literally some of the unhealthiest people on the planet. After being in 2015 and having iPhones, you know, to have depression, anxiety, cancer, diabetes, and heart disease, and kids being put on all these prescription drugs at such young ages. And you guys mentioned in your book on page 84 that 1 out of every 3 deaths in America is attributable to heart disease.
Right.
Oh, I don't want to say it around the kids. How old is your daughter, that one?
She's 8.
She's 8. So I have a 9-year-old and an 11-year-old.
Yeah. Oh, there she is.
That's okay. That's cool. Hi, sweetie. Oh, she's cool. My kids are somewhere throughout the house while I do the podcast. But anyway, I was just going to say, what was I going to say about that? It just makes me wonder why more people don't question the medical community and mainstream media and things that they hear. If we were getting like tremendous, amazing results and people were feeling like beyond wonderful and healthy and jumping around and, you know, leaping through their kitchen, I could understand how they would be closed off to, you know, the plant power way or vegan or plant-based. But to me, it just doesn't really make sense. And so I was so glad to hear that you guys are involved in that movie I wanted to mention, Cowspiracy, as well.
Yes. Yeah, it's super exciting. I mean, Cowspiracy, have you seen the documentary?
Yes. I got it in my little gift bag from you.
Awesome. Yeah, so Cowspiracy is an amazing documentary. It's the title's a little bit misleading because, you know, it's not about animal slaughter. That's not the focus of the film. The film is an environmental film, and it basically lays out the net water impact of industrialized meat and the effects on our oceans and the effects on our forests, and really what is sustainable and what is grass-fed and what is organic, or how come dairy isn't sustainable? Like, I understand, a lot of people say, well, I understand meat, but what about cheese and what about milk? So it's a very, very powerful documentary. And just last week, it was announced that Leonardo DiCaprio is now executive producer attached to the film, and it is now a Netflix original. So it's a huge, huge step in getting this film out to more people. If you haven't seen it, it's a good watch. It's as entertaining as like Super Size Me. And the filmmakers, Kip and Keegan, I was very inspired and touched by them at their strength, at their courage, and at their willingness to tackle this very, very controversial subject, and do it with such grace and authenticity and heart. And they did an amazing job. So everybody who lives on planet Earth should see this movie, whether you're vegan or whether you're eat fish, or whether, whatever your eating style is. Do yourself a favor and watch this film. We know in California that we are in a very, very severe drought, and everything is so dry. And it's really empowering and really amazing to know that every time you choose plants on your plate, that you are saving maybe up to 2,000 gallons of water in one meal, and also an animal's life. That's a huge, huge power, and a huge move and gesture you can make for your planet, and to support, all of us having a more beautiful life and a more rich and full life on this beautiful Mother Gaia that we're traveling on.
Yeah, thank you. I love that introduction to it and that description. That's what I keep walking around when everyone keeps saying, turn off the water when you brush your teeth, and, maybe shower less or change your plants in your landscaping. I keep thinking, let's just empower ourselves and know that that's not the only way. That's probably the least effective way that we're going to make a change on the planet. And if people really are concerned about it, they need to empower themselves with that knowledge and just, kind of upgrade and learn a little bit about it. So that's beautiful. So I just have one more question to talk about, or one more topic really quickly, and we can maybe talk about this at a future date. But I've been learning to master meditation. By master, I mean sit and do it, and guide myself to do it. And I know that's something that's very special to you and that you practice. For me, it's been challenging to learn how to do it, but I've noticed I actually have a mantra, because I've already noticed it, but I have a mantra: meditation equals miracles. And I'm not talking about only like dreams come true or wishes or prayers that are answered, but miracles meaning a difference in how I feel internally, which feels miraculous because it can really shift me. I've been really putting that into practice. We sort of tell the kids, and my kids take deep breaths and things like that, but they're not really there yet. So Is that something that only you do, or do more people in your family meditate? Or tell me.
Well, yeah, it's something that I do. The way that I interact with life is from a spiritual perspective. And so because I had such a visceral experience of like receiving the songs in a meditation practice, it's kind of a very, very visceral proof of the power of connecting with yourself at a deeper level. And we're all so externally focused that we rarely take time to even check in with what's going on. And I don't mean in a conversation. I mean actually sort of retreating from the stimulus and going into a place of silence within the heart and just resting there. It's a rest, it's a repose, it's it's a place of recharging, of plugging into who you really are. And it is really, really challenging to do. And because we're in a modern world and we have all this stuff going on, and we have kids and all this stuff. So the meditation technique that I found the most powerful for me is called a Maha Mantra, which is a great mantra, and it's a humming technique. And so the core part of the technique, instead of like if you were doing an Om, it would be Om. This technique is a So you're directing the sound into your heart.
You're bringing it within instead of out.
Yeah, in, and you're drawing it up from the third chakra, from Manipura, into the heart, and it's all focused on your heart. And this particular technique has been really super powerful because I found it facilitated me in being able to drop in. And having taught it for quite a few years, I also noticed that a lot of other people had a big resonance with it. And so I created a meditation program that's available on my site and also on Rich Roll site. It's actually our #1 selling product right now.
Oh, wow.
So it means, our listeners are actually finally meditating, which is, yay. But it's a 30-minute program that you can download. You can put it on your computer and then transfer it to your device. And just do it every day. It takes 30 minutes. And just listen. It's a humming practice. It's a visualization. And it's a way of really getting connected with your deeper resonance of what you came here to do.
Well, I'll tell you, I would say really the last year, but maybe even the last 2 years, I have felt that my husband and I are both sort of going through that dark night of the soul. And I actually was kind of like, well, what the heck? Am I going to have to meditate? Because it's the only thing I haven't tried. I did it a little bit, but I dabbled in it, and I didn't do it with the respect that it deserved, and I didn't know enough about it. And I sort of felt like when I had nowhere else to turn, I was going to be forced to turn within. And so I'm still, learning it, and that's really cool to know about your product. But it's interesting what forced me to go that way. It wasn't something I was really ready to embrace. It felt like a last resort if I was going to survive out of it, out of what I was feeling, what I was going through. I just felt like I was couldn't escape. I couldn't run. There was nowhere to go. No one could help me. And I think when you go through a dark night process like that, it's kind of really, really similar to childbirth. When I had my first daughter, I had a doula. And I had my husband, and I had people around me, but you realize at some point during the birthing process, you have to friggin' do it yourself. It's all on you. I had my music. No one was allowed to turn off my music. I had these people, but you look at all of their faces in the room, and you're like, they might be supportive, but none of them have to do it. And
no.
I felt like that about coming into myself. I'm 41 now, and I thought to myself, no one can help me. No one. 700 books, all the things I've done, all the things I've researched, everything I've learned. Now it's time to go within. So that's still something I'm working on, but maybe that's another thing we can connect on.
That's such a profound experience, and such a blessing that you have that experience and that awareness. And for many, many years, I wasn't ready either until it's that moment where you have no choice. And that's when it's really, it really shifts you. And so I would suggest that you try my meditation. I've had actually Claudia Altiture. I was on her podcast, and she's an Ashtangi and practices yoga, and a yoga teacher, and she kind of asked me the same question, and she tried my meditation and had quite an amazing experience.
Oh,
so
really?
Anyway, she called me, she sent me an email a couple days afterwards, and she's like, I did your meditation and I cried for 3 hours.
Oh my God.
So she says she's totally shifted since she started doing it. She's like, I completely let go of something, and something completely changed. And the truth is that I channeled that meditation when I was still really in the process. And again, there is no marketing thought process to it. I didn't edit it so that it would be more accessible, or change it so that how the mind comes in and the marketing part of it. That meditation is literally the real channeled goods. And it's amazing. A lot of people are using it now, and it's great. And I have no attachment to it. It saved my life. That's why I share it, because it's my responsibility to share it. But anyway, try it, because it's a 30-minute guided, and so you don't have to. You can be racing with your kids, go in, shut the door, turn it on, and be doing it. You don't have to wind down or do anything. So anyway, let me know if you do it, how it goes.
Okay, that's really good to know. Yeah, it's funny. My husband has supposedly been meditating for years. I say supposedly because sometimes we talk to each other in this way where he's like, we would say, I'm going to try and go meditate. And then I'm like, honey, that's really weak. Like, you can't say I'm going to try. Like, Yoda says you don't try. Like, hello. So we would, it was kind of our stepping away from each other, like, well, I'm going to go try and meditate now. And I was like, maybe we should just start saying, I am going to meditate. And
Right.
sometimes I set the, stopwatch on my iPhone to see how long I lasted before I thought of an email or my grocery list or things I had to do or, things like that. But every time the thoughts would come, I would say, that's okay. Just get it all out and just, just keep emptying.
Yeah, you're going to have thoughts.
Yeah.
It's not that you're not going to have thoughts. You're going to have thoughts, and it's just a matter of not running away with them, not running into the rabbit hole with them. So if you don't want to try to suppress your mind, or your mind's going to rebel.
Yeah.
So you're just accepting all of you, but by doing some of these active meditations like the humming, when you stop, you have a moment where you drop in and you can start to feel that quality. And all you need is a moment. Like, a moment is a great benefit. So yeah, and I think then after that, and after you've cultivated that, and after you've cultivated this kind of mindfulness and the connection with the breath, it's like my whole life is a meditation. Like my awareness is peaked at a point where I'm hyper aware in most of my activities. So it's not a chore, it's not a regimen. Never has been for me, because I'm a fluid person. So if I'll get woken up in the middle of the night to go do a practice, that's what I do. But I don't make a calendar and say every day at this time I have to do this. That's like a prison to me.
Yeah, that's usually when I fail at something, if I do that. If I bind myself to it, because I'm the same way, it's very fluid. And I'm glad you said that, because I think sometimes we have an idea of what it might look like, and when we don't match somebody else or somebody's experience, we feel like we should give up. But I'm so glad to know you have that product. So I just want to thank you for being with us today. And I encourage all our listeners to listen, and connect with all your websites. I'll have your websites and your music, and maybe you'll make sure that I have everything correct. All your social media pages and everything. I would recommend anyone reading your book to learn more about the Plant Power Way, and I think it should be required reading. We don't want to require anyone, but I think it would be really cool for people to sort of learn why it's important and what they can benefit out of it. But I'll have links to all your information and Rich's podcast and your books and everything on my website after when I launch the podcast.
Thank you so much. It's just lovely to spend moments with you, and I'm really, really inspired and love hearing everything that you're doing. So keep doing the great work, and I can't wait for your book. So keep me posted.
Thank you. Me too. I want to say, I just wanted to ask you your music. I just want to make sure that I say it right, because I'm doing Sanskrit words. My company Prana Boost is Sanskrit, and my necklace is ahimsa, which is Sanskrit, for nonviolence. But is your I don't know how to say your name with your music. I want to say it correctly.
SriMati.
SriMati. Okay, that's what I wanted to make sure that I was saying that right. Okay, cool. So we will link to your music too, and I want to say namaste.
Namaste.
Thanks,
I'm holding
Julie.
the computer with my hand, so I can't.
Oh my God, you're holding it. Okay, thank you, sweetie, and I look forward to connecting with you again soon.
Thank you so much. It was a blessing. Thank you.
Thank
Good
you.
night.
Bye.
Bye.